guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Build Your Dumpster Fire, where every week we pour more gas on it just to see how bright the flames get. And
Or
today,
what color?
oh, color. Oh, I love that. That's interesting. And today we're going to be talking about specifically we're talking about HubSpot job titles, but a whole bunch of other rabbit holes while we're at it. And so today, like always, got Danielle and Matthew here. And how you guys doing?
I'm great.
It's cold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't talk to me about cold. You live in Florida. I'm in Boston,
Hey,
dude.
hey, hey! They're starting to issue the falling iguana alerts. So like it's serious, guys.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yesterday's weather report was feels like 2.
Is
If
it
you ever want
Fahrenheit or
confidence,
is that
I
Fahrenheit or
definitely
centigrade for those of us not living in the States?
It's Fahrenheit because we live in the States and we're cold.
remember it's -5 in Antarctica. Is it colder in Antarctica? That's how you determine if you can complain about the cold.
I mean, if I went 2 hours north, it would probably be comparable.
Oh man, and like again, meanwhile, like Matthew, like similar to you, just like living over in the San Diego area, it's just like yeah, it was below 50 for like 5 minutes, and that's too cold for like basically everyone who
I
lives
had
here.
to put on layers, guys. Like, come on.
No, no, it's not even layers. It's I had to put on pants, not shorts. Like what's going on here?
Cracking out the jeans.
Yeah, exactly right. Oh man. But
Uh,
digressing from the first rabbit hole, obviously, this is where we need Chris to be in there just going like ding with the rabbit hole button that we were talking
yes.
about
Mm,
at some point last year. But HubSpot job titles, we all
Oh,
have very strong opinions on this. And I'm just going to kind of, I'll, I'll open it up over to you, Danielle. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, what? Yeah,
I'm
no, I'm putting
honored.
you on the spot because I know Matthew and I are very open and opinionated about this and have been, like, even going into this call for like the last 20 minutes.
I
Um,
know. I feel like I haven't been publicly opinionated about this, but I am very opinionated, and it is
oh,
time
please
to take
share.
this to the masses.
Please share.
Well, and it's funny because there's a lot of conversation about this and like how do you hire for it and like what even is a HubSpot person? And I think the one public post I put out was actually one of my like highest impression posts last year, and it was like get ready for a HubSpot expert to be the thing of the past because HubSpot is everything now, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't have a
mhm.
HubSpot expert. You can have someone who knows where the buttons are, but there are a lot of those people, and you have someone who can like build you a website, knows where those buttons are, and you have people who can like re-architect your go-to-market strategy and knows where those buttons are. And those are very, very different people. So I feel like the job descriptions that I was just scrolling through 5 minutes ago are like they're good. They're like, demand gen focused or ops focused. But I come from the world of startup software, which
Mm-hmm.
is just like lighting a torch and hoping for the best. Like it's just
Hey,
such
that
chaos.
fits our motif like perfectly.
I know. Let's keep this fire
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Well, like, and it's so this is such a timely conversation because now, like, my LinkedIn feed is literally in like someone who I follow and have read their book. Just posted, I will not get sucked into the RevOps versus GTM engineering debate because even if we just remove HubSpot from this conversation, like
Yep.
RevOps didn't exist 4 years ago. Then it became this thing. LinkedIn were like, it's the next big job. Like RevOps manager is going to be the thing. And now even then they're deciding, no, we don't like that name anymore. We're going to call it something else. And it's like, can we just stop? We don't need to rename jobs every 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Like we're renaming jobs faster than we go through presidents. Like it's not okay. And I need some stability and I need to be able to like look at someone's like if I'm trying to hire someone, like let me look at their resume and go like, oh, I can see that you've been doing consistently the same thing and not have to spend 20 minutes explaining, well, I had this title, but I did this, and then I had this title, but I
Mm-hmm.
still did this, and I had this title and I did this.
Yeah.
Because like the thing that stresses me out the most about this is that recruiters don't know what we do. Like fully transparent. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have great recruiter friends and they tell me at the same time, like, I don't know what you do. Like, and it's not like they're not saying that like I don't know what you do, like why are you here? They're saying like I genuinely don't know, like I can't know what everyone's job titles are and like
And
what
I
it
need you to
actually
educate
means.
me to some degree during the
I'm
interview
like,
process.
educate me on
Yeah.
what you do. And like I do. And they're like, okay, cool. So like then like when they have their like and I would say like shout out to all our talent acquisition friends, which
Yes.
is that, you know, if you have those conversations with your like technical resources that are hiring, like so that you can weed out those people early on, it super helps. Because we'll tell you exactly like if they say these three words, do not hire them. Um, but like I think that's a huge thing is like we don't like by changing the titles up constantly, like we're confusing not just like our industry, but like other industries in turn. Like it doesn't help anyone to keep renaming titles.
You're you're entirely right, and like I've seen so many posts about it lately too, and just honest, whether that's people ranting about the job titles or people hiring for the job titles, and like I kid you not, like I every time I see a insert like HubSpot blank title here, it makes me chuckle because
Yeah.
like I can't tell you how many like job descriptions I've looked at over the last couple weeks because like all of you like we do we do a combination of contracting, freelancing, and consulting. But HubSpot solutions engineer, HubSpot solutions architect, go to market engineer, CRM expert, as like just to name four right off the bat. But you read through the job description, they all read the same freaking thing, and it's like, okay, we like there's something systemically wrong here because like in my mind at least, like everything that is HubSpot, and honestly, anything that is software in some capacity to what we're doing breaks down into and feel free to argue with this, please. Like it breaks down into three categories. You have consulting, strategy, implementation,
Yeah.
and I discovered on accident like a medical analogy yesterday of just like you treat the consultant like the epidemiologist who you go to the doctor and you're like, I don't even know what's wrong with me, help. They figure out what's wrong with you. The consultant's whole job is figuring out what the heck that is. Then you get handed off over to the strategist, aka your primary care doctor, who puts together the treatment plan and makes sure that you see that through. And then you have your implementation person or specialist, whatever you want to call it, and that person's job is like the physical therapist or the pharmacist
Pharmacist.
or the person who's like literally just like, okay, cool, I receive orders from doctor, I'm literally just doing it.
I mean,
And
you
it's
can
like,
almost argue like surgeons do that to some extent. Like they come in, they
yes,
cut you
same
up,
thing.
and
I
then send
literally,
you on your way. Like they don't care about you post surgery. No offense to surgeons at all, but
no,
like
no,
their
no.
job is like they have like it's a very like I'm going in, I'm going to do X, and then we're gonna make sure that you're healed and move on.
Yeah,
You know, it's
and you're exactly right. But like again, the whole thing really just boils down to like from my perspective, those three categories. Like either you're the one figuring out what the problem is, you're figuring out how to solve the problem, or you're literally the one fixing the problem. Anything else
yeah.
beyond that is just adding convolution, muddiness, and confusion.
I think I think a lot of things, but I do agree that I think we're trying to find a job title for everything when we should stop doing that. And I think we
Yeah.
should start being more consistent of this is not a singular individual anymore. It can be in a startup environment, but even then, I don't think like let's be honest, no one is hiring a strategist as their first hire. They're
Right.
hiring a
You
doer.
have to hit
Mhm.
KPIs. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I need the thing built. And like, yes, does that suck long term? Yes, because then when you go back to scale, and that's what we're at right now, where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we built all this stuff and it's fantastic, but now I have someone else coming in and telling me it could be all terrible. We need to burn it down because it wasn't built for scale. It was built to just get across the finish line.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, I think we just need to be a bit more consistent with like, what does that look like? And like, in a weird way, I feel like HubSpot to some extent, I hate like putting myself in a bucket where it's like, oh, I'm a HubSpot person.
Hmm.
But I feel like we kind of have to in order to differentiate from like the Salesforce people or whatever other CRMs exist because we don't care about them. But like really Pitra. The I think taking HubSpot out of the name is a detriment to us as people because like it's very easy to say I need a revenue operations person. And then you get like 30 hires, you get 30 applicants, and like 25 of them only have Salesforce experience. And you're like, but I don't use
Mhm.
Salesforce. So like it's I think you've got to keep HubSpot in name because people are searching by job titles. They're not looking at job descriptions when they search. So I think like it's like that's something that we have to find like a titling system that works, but helps define that. Because I think there's a certain part of you're gonna have people who are early stage and you're gonna have people who are late stage. And there's people who are gonna build things and like want to come in, get it built, can do like early strategy, build a thing, maintain it, and then will eventually as a person in a career growth, you're not going to usually stay with that company. You're going to say, hey, no, go hire a team and I will hand off to that team and go do this again. Because
Hmm.
I'm good at building. I'm not good at long-term
Right.
scale because like long-term scale bores me or whatever the reasoning is.
Right.
So like I think that's part of the problem is that we've not identified that yet, and that's why we're having this whole party around names because we just don't know what to call it because we don't even know what it should be in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And like I would love to hear your take on this, Danielle, just because
Hmm.
I have my own thoughts, and it basically like it, it takes that a step further. Just like you have two layers of logic of basically like, are you the consultant, are you the strategist, are you the implementer, and then specifically what vertical do you fall under? Is that web development, is that engineering, is that like content marketing or social or whatever you want to do. And we basically come down with that standardized category. And
Yeah.
you basically choose that and then tag the software that you use to be able to do it. That's not even a vertical you need. That can just be a tag. But those first two are how you differentiate. But my thoughts, Danielle,
Yeah.
please.
It's no, it's funny because the maturity factor is huge because when
Yes.
you're a
Yeah.
startup, like I have been the first marketing hire, marketing director, marketing manager, whatever, for like 4 or 5 different startups when
Mm-hmm.
I was still working full-time in-house. And that role has to literally be everything. Like we're coming in to take them from founder-led sales to like awareness for the first time pretty much ever and like
Yeah.
putting any strategy behind that and then turning that into demand gen to hopefully get them to a point where they can scale sales, then they turn back around and scale marketing. I have never gotten to a point where I get to just be operations until I got into consulting. But that's
Mm-hmm.
just because that's where my specialty is. It's like, yeah, I'm going to just get it done. That's what I'm trained to do and that's what I'm really good at because I like seeing projects through. So, when you're in the startup world, you're very fortunate and lucky if you can find someone who can perform those like awareness and demand generation activities with an ops background because then you've found a unicorn, not to toot my own horn, where you're setting up a baseline for scale that is
Yeah.
leaving someone else the breadcrumbs to build on top of and mature the team into something that can really function with 3 to 5 people and then 5 to 20 people and
Yeah.
move up that maturity scale. But like Matt was saying, or Matthew, you can't really get something off the ground and get it right the first time. That's going to be the thing that scales with you. And so at some point you're going to hit that inflection point where it's like, yep, just blow it all up and start over. And that's where you have to find those people who are specialized to consult on the overarching direction of the company and then build the strategy for operations.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, actually, too, it's an interesting question that I've been having a lot lately. Just like of what do you two think of maybe the issue effectively being tied to that maturity model and just adding a classification to the maturity model that like classification as part of this designation and to use that like using that as an example to just contextualize this like we can say maturity like there's 4 levels of maturity. Level 1 is you're under a million ARR. Level 2 is you're between 1 and 2.5. Level 3 is 2.5 to 10, and level 4 is 10 and above, which kind of goes synonymously with your very small business, your medium size, your enterprise, and then
Yeah.
you can call the optional level 5 just like niche growth, niche scalability. Like,
Fangs.
how would that help?
Well, I think if we could standardize these jobs, we'd be doing an incredible service to our fellow marketing ops people out in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Because if we were to say, like, hey, if you're this size company, you have these job titles. If you're this size company, you should have these job titles. And I think there are so many people who literally write books on this. Or you can pay people a lot of money to tell you how you should structure your team. But when it comes
I'm
to
in the wrong
HubSpot,
business.
yeah, when it comes to HubSpot, I think they're only just recently, like in the past 3-ish years,
Mm-hmm.
moving into that high-end enterprise, big accounts. And that's still not what people perceive them in the marketplace. So when you
Yeah.
look for HubSpot people, you think of like scrappy SMB folks who are going to come in and just do it all. But if we could educate the world and break it down into like, okay, your demand gen person needs to be supported by ops, or you need to have those functions on your team, whether that's one person or 3. or even 10, and how that breaks down, uh, then everybody wins. Like, then we all know what's happening. But I
Yeah.
think that's a pipe dream because we like to make up flashy titles like ninja.
Right.
Tell me how that really makes you feel, Danielle. Ninjas. I mean, like I always joke about like internally we have this joke is like, oh, like Matthew's our HubSpot magician, and like that's fine. Like we
Right.
joke about that all the time, but like I would never make that my job title because like that's not like doesn't tell you anything.
Right.
Um, I think there's to your point is I think we're trying to like figure out a job title for 7 jobs, but
Yeah.
call it one job title, and that's just never going to work. Like there definitely is, and like I push back on this is me trying to like poke the flames a little bit, which is like sometimes you can't rely on an ARR number to define a business because some businesses start
Right.
off with very high volume,
Of
like they
course.
are expensive. So like that sometimes brings that problem. But I think there's a certain part where you say, at what point are you founder-led startup? And at what
Hmm.
point are you like, cool, now we become a scalable business?
Hmm.
And I think that like there's a lot of companies that don't publicly essentially announce to their team and to like their shareholders like, hey, we're no longer a startup. We're now this. And like if you have process and you have repeatable process, you're not a startup anymore. Like
Yeah.
you're now in a place where you can scale. And like there's so many businesses like I worked for one that was like 13 years old and still consider themselves a startup. I'm like, you're not though. Because like you have like repeatable business and like renewing business. Like that's not you're not a startup anymore. Like you've got a thing, the product works. Like why are you saying you're a startup? Like you're not. Um, but like I think that's part of the issue is like by saying that they're like, well, we can hire someone for less money. We'll hire one person for less than hiring a team of 3 people, which is what we actually need at this point. Like, and I think that's the thing. I think of a lot of people are like, oh, we need RevOps, and RevOps is going to replace like marketing ops and sales ops and success ops. And I'm like, it can in an early, like late startup, early scale model. But as you scale, you're going to want to redefine those. Like those people do need to come back. Like you need someone who can just spend time working on us because it's a big thing now. Like there's someone who needs to be on marketing ops. There needs to be someone who's sales ops. There needs to be someone who's success ops, which is what I'm usually referring to everything as post sale. Like you need someone in each of those teams. Then maybe a leader that is like the director of RevOps or VP of RevOps or whatever you want to call it, that's overseeing those 3 people. I think that's my like hot take on this. Like I think it should be its own department, and I think it should be, someone should monitor these people. Like that marketing ops person should report to someone that isn't in marketing, but they should work with the marketing team. And then like that's a thing that apparently some companies don't understand. Is like if you put someone's marketing in their name, they have to report to marketing. I'm like, they don't know.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
they shouldn't. Like they work with this team that team is their customer, but their KPIs are not that team's KPIs. Their KPIs are as a business, are we working together as a team?
Yeah.
I think that is the mindset that we need to set. And I think that will help drive like job titles.
Yes.
Because, you know, if you look at like I think we just need to standardize around the idea of like there's a specialist versus like an associate versus like engineering does it really well, but like you have associates and you have specialists and then you have like level 2 and level 3 and then you have senior like
Hmm.
like I don't know why we can't do that like in the HubSpot world. Like why
Yeah.
can't we have a HubSpot marketing associate, then a HubSpot marketing specialist, then like a HubSpot marketing manager? Like you can like see the clear, like, oh, this person's got smarter. Like, like I don't see why we can't just keep it simple. I feel like we're trying to like go for this complex, fancy word, and I'm like, just call it what people know, because let's be honest, the people that run business are old white men and they don't know and they don't care and they're not gonna like read up on things. So like just make it easy because then it's much easier to be like, I need an ops specialist. It's easier to get through approvals than I need a CRM ninja. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Oops, I
You're.
swore.
Oh, whatever.
Sorry,
But like,
LinkedIn.
I think you're entirely right.
Sorry.
I think you're entirely right, and it's fine. And like that, and that's my big gripe with like RevOps or revenue ops, and it's just like in my mind, like it should have never existed in the first place, and the fact that it exists now, I still think it's going to be obsolete in 2 years because ultimately, like all like it's just another fancy way of saying we communicate. That's all it is. And it like
Doing the
in my
thing you should have been doing from the beginning.
exactly because to both of your point, I think all of these different departments that are focused on demand gen and revenue, like marketing, sales, customer support for the cross sell and upsell, those are all like they're all important. But if you have someone who's focused on revenue ops, you're like, oh, I'm focusing on these 3 teams. But my big problem with that is fantastic, you do all of that, but what about your infrastructure and everything that happens behind the scenes that isn't that? What about everything
Yeah.
that's HR, IT, finance, accounting, like administration and project management and operations for some of like all these other industries? And so like that's why I strongly advocate more for like Matthew, like what you're saying is just like having someone who's more that leadership level at like a business operations perspective. And I strongly believe that that is someone who is either at like a senior leadership position or is consulting, because if you have this person as like a full-time role and like reporting into someone in the business, I think you're doing it wrong. And I also think that that's something that is like it shouldn't be a day-to-day thing. It's something that you fix and adjust like every couple years once you hit to this scaling point. So to the anecdote that we're talking about, you're going from a startup to like a sustaining revenue driven business, and ignoring the revenue factor, but like let's say it's like you've grown from 1 million to 2.5, your headcount has tripled, and you
But
are
not in
now
operations.
sorry.
Never.
Yeah.
Your
Never in
headcount tripled, but not in
operations.
operations.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like that's where you bring in the like a business operations consultant, and they're like, okay, great. Well, your sales and marketing is doing good. So is your customer support. But by the way, your IT team consists of one person, and he's just he, she, they, whomever is just a glorified like 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 SaaS manager of the various tools that you use. So he just like takes care of like, okay, here's my hub, like here's the person who uses HubSpot, here's the person who uses the password management tool, and it just provisions licenses all day, and that's all they do. And it's just like that's not what you need in like an IT, let alone an operations team for your scale. And
I
so
have
And
that's where the
to
consultant's like,
to
hey, look,
hijack this conversation to some extent, because it drives me nuts, is that like we're having a really hard time as like orgs in general defining the difference between systems and like operations.
yes,
Because like what's the difference between the two now? Like Gmail is not a revenue system, right? Like Slack is not a revenue system. But like I've worked at companies where like I'm the CRM manager and like but I also admin Slack. And it's like, is it because like it's close enough and like we'd rather not hire an IT person? Like when do you hire an IT person? Like and what is the IT person? Do they provision accounts in HubSpot? Like we're like these are conversations I'm having right now. So it's like who like how do you differentiate those two teams? And I think that people a lot of companies don't understand the difference there of like
yeah,
where does that
Yeah,
sit?
I have a theory on this because coming from startup marketing, it's like the last person hired and the first one to go when money gets tight. And so I'm very cynical about how people see marketing teams and organizations. But my theory is that like marketing realized this need, but nobody wants to give money to marketing. So we just started calling it things that aren't marketing to try
hmm
and get us people and roles hired that actually get it done. Like they get the job done. Because you're right. Like when you have things like Slack, I know so many marketing teams depend on Slack for a lead handoff. Like there's always 100 workflows that are pushing alerts into Slack every time a form is filled out. Every single company that has Slack and HubSpot is doing that.
hmm
And so when you have that, it's like, okay, well, then marketing cares the most about Slack staying up to date and getting people in there. But like you're saying, it's not revenue producing. It's not actually a marketing tool at all. But
Yeah.
we need somebody to own it. And marketing realizes the need. So we're going to call them go to market engineer or RevOps or whatever it is to make sure that we can keep those lights on without taking money away from marketing.
exactly.
Right.
And like that's where I think like the clear delineation between the systems and operations needs to happen, and those need to be agnostic of a department being like marketing, sales, customer support, accounting, finance, whatever. And it in my mind it boils down very simply. It's like systems is a technology, operations is a methodology, and effectively you have operations people that use the technology, and you have like the systems people who use the operations, and they go hand in hand, which is why you don't hire like a PMP or agile certified project manager to come manage your Asana or your Monday, because they're like, I'm versed in how to do the process of like moving project from start to finish and making sure people are doing that. but I'm
Yeah.
not the person who has any clue how to actually work the system. Like sometimes I do. Like I am one of those people who knows both sides of the
Yeah.
coin. Again, not to do my own horn, but like you still need the person who's sitting there as like the systems administrator who's like, okay, I know Monday inside and out, and like it's my job to educate the project manager on how to do this from a system perspective, and if there's any historical context about the company that is relevant. It's that, in my mind, it's that simple. And like I like to your points of just having that convolution between the two, when you're trying to bring in a person to fill that role, particularly early on, that's where you need to be very thoughtful about where and how you want to be investing the money, because it's very easy to want to bring in a doer for this kind of work, and I would strongly encourage you not to, because when you start doing the doer, that's where things break down from the systems and the operation side of things.
No,
Because
don't tell people not to do that, because then they need me to come fix it.
that's
I
Well,
need the
totally
job
fair.
actually,
security,
here's what I'll say
Brian.
is hiring a doer will result in you having really high turnovers of doers.
Yes.
Because what happens is a doer comes in, does a thing, gets bored, leaves, or quits, or gets
New
fired.
doer
Then you hire another doer who has a different way of doing it. And
does
then
the doing.
then
Yep.
you come, then Danielle or I come in and we're like, the fuck.
Why do you
Yeah.
have two different ways to do the
Like,
exact same thing when
let
you
me
should get
teach
rid of it and
you
have one that works,
what an
what you
SOP
guys want
is.
to use?
Or my favorite, why do you have 14 workflows doing the
Yes.
same thing?
Yep.
What the
Undoing
hell?
it and redoing it and
Yeah,
undoing
undoing
it.
and like re-triggering each other every 2 days. Definitely not from experience to still dealing with that right now. But I so like the thing I think of, like if I was to think of maybe like rethinking job titles as sort of like how would you like to structure a team? And I'm like going back to your analogy at the beginning, Brian, where you're like you don't go to a surgeon to tell you how to take care of your day-to-day health. Like I feel like if you were to build like the perfect team, I do think like HubSpot teams are better, smaller. I think you can't get like bulky and huge. I just don't think it's possible to
No,
be effective.
it doesn't make
But
sense.
I think like you need to have someone like you need your mechanic. Like you don't ask a mechanic to design a car. So
Right.
they'll design a car that is easy to repair and looks shit. Like that's essentially what's going to be the situation. So it's like you need someone who's going to be like, hey, I'm responsible for maintenance of HubSpot. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to evaluate workflows every 30 days. I'm going to check on reports every 60 days. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And like that's their entire job. It's like it's just maintenance. And like they're dealing with maybe like tickets from the internal teams about things that aren't working properly. Like they're handling that. Then you have a second person who's focused on like, is what we're doing the best way to do it? What's the strategy? What's the like that
Hmm.
sort of thing? Like that's how I think that team needs to be because it splits it out. But like because we don't define job titles well, we're trying to find one person who can do both of that, which exists. Those unicorns exist. But I just think it's one of those like that's not a long-term solution and it causes burnout and then you lose people and then you end up with the Daniel Matthew problem, which is like, hey, now I have hired 4 people to do the same task and now my HubSpot's a nightmare.
Yep. And that's when you're gonna go in and be like, hey, look, I need to hire a consultant, and thinking that you need a consultant, but reality, all you need is a strategist who's basically tells you how to unravel this mess, not to help you diagnose the problem, because you
Yeah.
know what the problem is, which again boils back
Yeah.
into the job title issue, just like what do you do? Like is your job identifying the problem? Is it finding a solution to the problem, or is it solving the problem, or is it a combination of those things? Because it it's really that simple, and the method by which you actually deliver that solution, and like I say solution, and this can mean anything from like you're doing this as a like you're building a website, you're designing a piece of content, you're creating video, you're building a new process. Doesn't matter what that solution is, you're like, are you the implementer, or are you the one who's figuring out how to build, you know what the problem is and you're figuring out how to build it, or are you the one who's still trying to diagnose what's even wrong in the first place? And
Yeah.
that's my big argument of just like really needing to simplify it all the way down there in order to get things solved. And like that's where it kind of brings me to the thought of like almost needing to like it might be make sense for three of us. Like, let's just build a framework of just like, hey, look, here are the different scale, like the different level business that you're at, and like we can have whatever persona we want to throw in there, and at that you need you need these roles, whether that is like using the three different tier, just like consultant, strategist, doer, and then lastly it's just okay, well, and what like specifically the do you need the systems or the operations, or do you not need either one right now, you just need to get the thing done? And
Yeah.
like those, like if you break it down with like start here, then do this, then do that, I think that'll do a pretty good job of setting up a prescription for this whole thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, and also yell at me if I'm like totally out of whack, because I very well could be. I don't know. I'm very
No, I think
opinionated at this.
I think we need to gift our industry a list of suggested job titles for each of those things.
Yes.
No
So
ninjas.
we'll
No
definitely
ninjas.
write that up, and for everyone who's watching, like we will aim to have this to you by the end of the week. No promises, but we will try to have it to you this week or next week. But we'll see what
We
happens.
want it to. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. It's totally fine. But with that, realizing we're well over time at this point, do you have any other last thoughts that you may want to throw a nugget, just so that we can keep the fire burning until next week?
I just pulled up some pictures of my family dressed as ninjas in Tokyo because we did a ninja
Perfect.
class. Like
Love it.
this is a ninja.
Yeah.
We're not doing HubSpot.
There's not enough orange.
Yeah.
No.
Not enough orange in those to be HubSpot ninjas. Oh,
Yeah, there's
I-
plenty of
my
orange
la-
up there, but also that's Batman, aka superhero, aka not a HubSpot person.
Superheroes also don't belong in job descriptions. I think my last spicy take is just one thing that we haven't dove into, which is the functions that can happen within HubSpot. So we talked a lot about operations and sort of the world that we live in, but I touched on this at the beginning of like you can literally build your website in HubSpot. You can also run your sales team out of HubSpot. You can also run customer success or customer support out of HubSpot. You can run your marketing team out of HubSpot. And so each of those people can have the operations professionals to run their department on HubSpot. So you could get this hierarchy that branches off into 5 different teams that each have 3 people to get their systems running or get their processes running in HubSpot efficiently, effectively, and measurably.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll put a flowchart together.
No, I think that flowchart align that is definitely something we need to incorporate here. All right.
Yeah, that's it for me. I can hold my peace now.
Matthew, anything else to wrap us up and sprinkle on?
all I have to say is that it's like just my general job description hot take is that when you say like experience with CRMs and then list like Salesforce first, but you're a HubSpot company, I hate you.
I haven't even seen that, but I haven't gone looking either. So
Oh,
Like just because like I'm like that's like and that's how like someone knows what they're doing versus someone who like the job description is written by someone who like needs the help versus someone who's like we just need someone to manage this.
mhm.
Because I think there's just something to be said about like if you're looking for a HubSpot person, say you're looking for a HubSpot person. Don't be like fluent in CRM because there's like Salesforce and HubSpot are similar, but they're also not. Like something that works in Salesforce does not work the same way in HubSpot, like 9 times
Yeah.
out of 10.
Yep.
So like just because you know Salesforce does not mean you will know HubSpot or vice versa. Like I don't like if someone's like, let's do Salesforce. I'm like, oh, like I would be
Yeah.
like, go find someone else. Like it's not, I'm
Yeah.
not your person for that. And I think that it's wild to me that like so many companies just don't like put up front like I need someone with experience in HubSpot who's done X, Y, and Z, like has set up ticketing, has set up deals, has set up sales process, and like, or they'll say has experience in Marketing Hub. Like that doesn't mean anything. You can go take a certification in HubSpot Academy and said I'm proficient in Marketing Hub and still have no
Doesn't mean
freaking clue what
anything.
ABM is.
Literally website stuff
Like,
workflows.
Yeah.
yeah.
You can build a landing page.
So like Yeah, I can build a landing page, therefore I'm fluent in Marketing Hub is not like a valid skill set.
Oh no, it's totally
You know,
true.
I
As long
think
as you have the template and you like, if as long as you have the template and you didn't actually have to custom design it using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all that other good stuff.
it's very true.
It's okay. I'm adding gas to this.
Also,
But
put your salaries in your job description because like it's
please,
required
Oh
now in
my
like
God, yeah.
7 states, and
yeah,
like why are we like gatekeeping this
yeah,
anymore?
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of that crap. Competitive salary means you're not paying me enough money.
yeah, yeah.
That's why they call themselves
You're
startups.
yeah, you're not wrong, and I definitely appreciate all the spicy takes. It definitely keeps some heat going on here. So thank you everyone who
This
tuned
was the
in.
most organized meet. We've done two of these, and this one feels a
I
lot
know.
more like we had a thought process, which we didn't. For clarification to the audience, like it was
No,
just like we're gonna rant about job titles, and we came
that was
out with
it.
like a
That
very
was
like
all we
viable
planned.
meeting.
This was way comprehensive.
But we promise these won't always be this conclusive. Like there'll be a lot of ranting also.
Yes, that's the whole point. The whole point is basically pick theme, dive down rabbit holes, but ultimately summarize everything with a theme. And that's what we will do week in and week out as we continue doing our little fire dance and having a grand old time. So until next week, enjoy everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. That went fabulously well.